Hey everybody, welcome to Name Not Found. My name is Colin.
My name is Chris.
And we're going to start today's show by talking about everyone's favorite topic of conversation, anime guys, anime girls, fighting off paranormal shit. You know what it is. It's Persona 5 dropped this
Persona 5! Yes! Yeah, but if this were... I mean, this is episode 4, so if we were in reality, we would be in a high school solving mysteries... And we'd be like almost like a mystery team, you know.
Can
like
this be episode 4.5?
It's 4. So no, 4.
Name Not Found, episode 4.
.55555.
Persona 5.
Like,
episode 4.Persona 5. That's the name of the episode. Episode 4.Persona 5.
Repeating.
Of course.
of course. This is long division, sir. Long division. I don't know. I didn't do well in math.
No, I was thinking of the Leroy Jenkins 32.33 repeating, of course. As always my go-to there.
Always. So yeah, Persona 5 came out, and guys, it's real good. Like,
I'm really interested to hear about it. Like, super interested. So, like, give me... Okay, you know how, like, when a game starts, and especially, like, an Atlas game, or, you know, a game where you're, like, super stoked about, like, getting into it, like, what is your outside of the game, like when you're opening a new game and you're like sitting down to play it? Because I know everybody does like a little thing. Like me, I always make sure that I have I don't like food, but I like to have like something to drink. So maybe it's a beer, maybe it's like a soda or something like that.
Yeah.
I always have like a full drink, and I have I like to wear like layers. So if like I get hot, I can take them off, but I'm like cozy, and I don't like anybody around. Like unless it's like a new multiplayer game, I like to be like totally secluded. But like, what's your new game procedure? My
new game procedure is I've got to be in the comfortable spot on the couch, which I have an L couch, so it is the corner. It's a corner. L couch. That corner, bro. It's the best. You got to be there. Of course, I'm just a water drinker for the most part, so I always have to have like a gallon jug of water because I ain't getting up. I'm not getting up for a long time. That's not happening. I also don't like people around, mostly because like, if there's a new game, I'm like, yeah, shut the hell up. I'm gonna stab you if you talk anymore. Like, just slightly aggressive. But I think my also part of my procedure is I don't like to eat anything either, but I'm really about, for me, where I put my legs. You know, it's like so you don't.
They got to be like in a place where they're going to be comfortable.
Exactly.
Like, you don't want to like, yeah.
If you're on the couch, sometimes because of my L couch, it doesn't. You don't get proper viewing, so I've got to get them just on the right spot of a coffee table, so they don't dig in too much. You know, so you got to put your feet up on the coffee table and get all relaxed, but you can't have that edge digging into your calves, or it's just you're gonna be fidgeting the whole time. And also, you know, it's just that's basically all it comes down to with me. But the thing is with me, the most important thing about a game when I'm excited is I have to watch. You know how most games have that opening title sequence that you can skip? Oh, I'm always playing it.
Yep, you got to watch that thing all the way through.
Especially with a game like that, because they have their own custom video and shit. It's like an anime opening, you know?
And the thing is, okay, so there's that anime opening. Shout outs to Dave Stern and Alex Conway. Every time we would get together to play any Tales game, and we played through Tales of Symphonia, Tales of the Abyss, Tales of Symphonia 2. We almost got through Vesperia. Even when we knew the opening by heart, we would sit down before we started the game. It was like part of the ritual was like watch the opening. We would watch the opening like little cutscene, and they're the same way. The Tales games have, you know, really almost like anime TV show openings.
Right, yeah.
Not quite that level of like really cut together, well crafted stuff. But I'm trying to think of like other good openings. The Final Fantasy VIII opening is the best opening in games. Period. End of story. Kingdom Hearts 1, really good one with Utada Hikaru. Simple and clean, sick. What would be up there for you?
Openings wise, God, so many. I'm a huge strategy gamer, right? So I'm always into the opening scene of them. Like any of the not even just in the RPGs, but like Total War games have a really epic intro all the time because it's always the armies fighting. But I'm a huge fan of theatrical music. So it's just like
Shogun 1's opening. Remember us sitting down and watching that?
Was it Shogun 1 or 2? Was it that? Which one?
Well, Shogun 2 is the one with the following the arrows path, but I'm talking about in Shogun 1 where there's the geisha and like what? Like you can do that? What? And then like showing like the samurai warriors riding in. Like I remember specifically watching that.
There was also, but Shogun 2 is the best out of all of them because Shogun 2, it's got that classic because I love Japanese instruments and actually what I call Japanese violin style, if that makes sense to you, is just like that lower tone and very kind of almost sad sound that it gives.
It's God, if you want to talk about things Colin doesn't know about but it's going to try to sound like he knows about, it's like a Rensen, because I remember like it's something along those lines, and I'm not 100% sure. I don't want to take the time to look it up now.
But I remember that the violin would start playing and you just hear this voice goes, beauty and harmony. And I'm just like, so good. Like it's
also, I would be remiss to say you would always get hype watching any Smash intro, even the original Smash 64 intro, which is like, here's Master Hand. Do, 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 ba, 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 do, do. And I mean, don't get me started on Melee. Actually, Smash 4's intro was really lame because it wasn't like a cinematic. It was all gameplay footage, which was really impressive, like when you think about it. But it wasn't like even Brawl, which wasn't like the best game, had like an amazing intro. What's some other great intros?
I mean, there are a ton, but at the crux of the whole thing that we're saying here is that is like the necessary part when you get a new game you're hyped for. You know, it's
that's true. I could have tangented.
Oh yeah, no. I'm not just trying to say that, but I'm like, I'm realizing like we could go for 30 minutes on great game intros, and then I realized, oh wait, Persona 5 came out. Oh, we're lost. No. Where are we right now? Is this a maze? It's a labyrinth.
We're at the beginning of Persona 5. I think that's where we were.
Yeah, I'm not. There will be no spoilers, as far as I know, because I'm not that far into the game. I've only beaten the first boss, and it's really not that far. It's right before that moment in all like RPGs before the world opens really to you. You know, you have some freedom, but not all of it. Persona 5, right out from the get-go, I will say. So let me just backtrack 1 second. So Persona 4 actually, I'll backtrack one more because actually I had this conversation. So Persona 3, I will just say, had this. It was very dark and gritty, but it was more like give you mission, you go do mission. Give you mission, you go do mission, right? That was that kind of thing. Persona 4 introduced this whole mystery narrative, and it was just great character building and dialogue and just amazing. Anybody that has a PS Vita, which I'm still mad they haven't made it for console because get on your shit, Altus. But they added all this stuff. But the problem with it is that you still felt like the main character, he was just there and everything else was happening around him. You know, he didn't really have much development besides he's making friends in a new town. You know? He's
sort of like the pair of pants that you put yourself into.
Exactly.
He's just sort of like a very bland, like, this could be anybody. Right. Maybe you, player. Like that little wink,
that kind of thing. But when you're building such a rich story, when there's not even like a little bit, you know, for you, it just feels missing, in my opinion. Still great game, but, you know.
Well, yeah, but I mean, think of it from the developer's point of view. That brings a risk. Like, unless you're telling a very specific type of game, you risk alienating a player base, you know, with strong decision.
No, you're 100% right.
Like, wait, I wouldn't do that. Like, why the F is my guy or girl who I'm controlling doing that? You know, what's going on? And then there's like a dissonance. Like, you're not happy with it. There's a great example of this. I think one of the best ones is the Spec Ops: The Line. I mean, that famous instance where the game sort of forces you to commit a war crime, and then thankfully they purposely did that for a purpose of making you think about what you're doing.
Right.
But there are other games where it does it sort of in the wrong direction. I think another really good example of something like that, which I think about when we're talking about these sort of things, is a game like Grand Theft Auto. Like, there were so many times in Grand Theft Auto 5 where I was like, why are we... Oh, no, I'm sorry. Watch Dogs 1 was even better.
Fucking Watch Dogs 1.
Why aren't we supposed to be like the people who are benevolent and helping people? But no, I've got an AK-47. I don't care about hacking. Like, I'm just going to shoot this guy up, and there's no other way to complete the
Let me
mission.
hack into this. I'm like, no, I have an assault rifle, and apparently I'm unkillable.
Option. How many times do I have to show people Metal Gear Solid and say, it works? You don't have to kill anybody. You can do it.
Well,
you can save the planet.
So, to the point, and here's the thing. I made that point because, actually, Persona 5 has expanded on that idea. So there's still, as far as I know so far, excellent character building, first of all. Just from the get-go, I'm like, they presented the story, and I'm trying to work my brain around this without spoiling anything. So, the idea is, and this is public knowledge, you are thieves, but you're in high school. That it makes sense, I promise. But
it makes anime sense.
It makes anime sense.
Let's be clear.
Let's be 100% clear.
High schoolers are actually 25 and doctorates and whatever they're doing.
Oh, sure, absolutely. Apparently, this is given the idea that all Japanese students are PhDs. Like, that is how it works. Mm-hmm. Or, no, they're either PhDs or absolutely dumb as dirt. Like, one or the other.
Or they're the most physically gifted people on the planet, and then you're watching a shonen.
Yeah, but, exactly. But Persona 5, right from the get-go, they hook you in with this kind of, you start at the moment, almost like what I feel like is the end of the game, like this kind of thing of like, and then somebody's asking you to retell your whole tale of how you ended up here, right? And it's like, they're doing that.
Almost like a, I'm sorry to cut you off, but that reminds me vividly of Chrono Cross.
Yes. But in a completely, obviously different way. But the thing is you also don't know when you get there. You don't know what the fuck is going on, what's happening, what is this, where are you, who are these people? Like, they're just treating you like shit and beating you up and asking you what the hell happened, all this stuff, right? And all that happens, and then you start going back to the first day where you arrive at this high school, right? And this is where it begins, and you're just going, okay, so my character already has personality, and I will say I won't give away what it is, but there is a actual real specific reason why you've been sent here. You may or may not have a criminal record, okay? And it adds a bit of backstory depth rather than in Persona 4, it's like, well, your parents asked you to stay here, and there was no context. Like, it was like, parents asked to stay here during this thing. I think there was context at one point, but not, like, presented to you. You had to go looking for it.
Right.
But, actually, no, I think it was just because your parents were busy working at the city and they thought you'd have a better time here, and that's pretty much it. But the thing that was presented here was, like, immediately you're in, you see all this stuff, and you see, like, well, what the fuck? Like, what is that? Okay, so do you know the basic premise of Persona? Like, the idea that the basic premise of Persona is, like, usually there's another realm, so, like, an alternative reality that is shaped by people's desires that, usually takes on an image. So if you're very, like, lustful and stuff, you'll have this pleasure palace, like, huge thing, and it's only with people with, like, extreme desires, and these are bad people. So there are...
Sorry to cut you off again. So my understanding was that the Persona games were, like, in the same universe, but not necessarily connected narratively. Is that sort of true?
Yes. I can't confirm that, but I'm gonna say that they're all in the same universe because this same thing is happening.
And I can assume they follow the same kinds of rules, but not like the hard and fast rules of, let's say, a Lord of the Rings game, where it's like they're going to follow the Lord of the Rings rules for the most part.
Yes.
But Persona, they give themselves, creative,
absolutely,
creative flexibility.
And there are actually like one or two people that recur throughout all the games. I won't give that either, but There's
some Catherine cameos, I know for sure. I saw some screenshots.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that, to find that. But the thing I was looking at, what I really love about the game is that moment where it just hooks you in and you go, what the fuck? I love any game, by the way, that can just make you go, what the fuck is happening? Because that in my mind, and I'm sure we can get onto this, but that in my mind is excellent storytelling. Like, that is, if you can, within the first, I'd say 10 minutes of your story, have the players or watchers just go, what the fuck is happening? And not in a bad way, just like, oh, what the fuck? That, in my mind, is good storytelling. And I'm actually interested because I'll just pen this because I've talked enough about Persona 5. I'm playing it right now. I'm going nuts because I'm not playing it right now. I know how you felt when Breath of the Wild was next to you. But I'm actually going to upend this by saying Persona 5 is great game. Great game. It probably will be one of my favorite games of the year, even though I haven't finished it. Now,
well, how many hours in? That's a bold claim.
I'm at least, I'd say 5 to 6 hours in. And
okay.
Look, it's already
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying, I felt that, well, you want to talk about Game of the Year candidates. We had fucking 3 big ones come out, maybe even 4 come out just in March. I mean, you had Horizon Zero Dawn, you had Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, you got Persona 5, you've got, what was earlier on in the month that was really big? There was one more.
What was that game? I'm losing it, but I can't forget.
We'll come back to it.
We'll come back to it. Come back. But I know it's a bold claim, but it's one of those things of, you just play a game and you get an idea, and it's not like overhyped, because I'm not like, I know the Persona games, I've enjoyed them. My sister is like the biggest fan.
If you want to talk about hype about this, I don't think Sarah is going to sleep or eat.
She outdoes you with your fandom of Zelda. Like, she outdoes them. Yeah. Like, she is.
No, I'm not disagreeing with that. That is 100% true. We have to send Jay a care package because he's going to be taking care of Sarah for the next. And, that's talking about people that nobody knows. But let's just say that Sarah is the biggest Persona fan on the face of the earth.
Absolutely. Period. But it's just that type of thing where I don't even play them that often. I think that Persona 4 was a great game. Wasn't my all-time favorite, but I thought the concept was really cool because of the problems I said. It just didn't draw me as much. Still a great game. Great soundtrack, everything. But, when you turn on a game and you're within the first hour or so and you go, oh, this is going to be good. Like, this is, you just got it, and it's not hype. It's not because you love it. You just, like, there's something in your brain that it could be different for everyone else. With me, it just clicked. I was like, yeah.
I wonder what that is, because I can, like, pinpoint moments in, like, all of my big games and it sometimes is not right at the start, but there are, like, specific moments where you're like, oh, shit, like, this is what's going on. Like, this is what my experience is about to be. And it just, like, blows you away. I think for me, there are, like, a few big ones. Just to name some games that people, might not have played. I think my number one for game that I was like, is this what this game's gonna be about? And that's got to be Catherine, which is, thinking back, an Atlas game, because it is the first game. I mean, it doesn't tackle it in an adult way, but it talks about relationships in a way that aren't usually talked about in video games. And, like, one of the first things is, like, it establishes you have a girlfriend, it establishes you're lame in your job, and the first thing that happens is you, like, wake up in bed with this, like, other woman, and you're like, what? What? But you have these, like, crazy nightmares, and so, like, that's the start. Like, they just slap you in the face with, this is what's gonna happen, motherfucker. Are you okay with this? You are? Great, let's go. And then you're like, whoa, what's going on? So, I think maybe that might be sort of like an Atlas storytelling style, but there are definitely other games that have done that for me on, like, sort of the more indie level. I think a big one for me was recently that I played called Owlboy. Do you know this game?
No, actually.
So this is a game that was in development for a really long time. It was in development for about 10 years. And they had to the reason it took so long, they had to scrap all of their assets. It's a very, the art style is gorgeous. It almost looks painted. It's just like that really light, tight pixel, but soft pixel, so not very hard 16-bit, but more like your.
Oh, I'm looking at the images of it right now. Yeah. Oh wow, this looks gorgeous.
Oh, it is one of the most gorgeous games I've ever played, and the opening of that game, you're like in this dream, and you're not. And what I always look for first in a game is how it controls, and man, was that game tight, just perfectly. Every little thing I did was resonated in the controls, which is really important for me. But then on top of that, what really sold me on the game is it had a beautiful image, a beautiful, outward feel.
Right.
But the content was very melancholy and dark. And so that juxtaposition immediately drew me in. I was like, what's going to happen to my little person? What they do that's amazing actually is, how in every fucking game, your main in a lot of games in RPGs, your main character doesn't speak. Right. Yeah. And they don't
Persona 5, your character barely speaks. He speaks occasionally.
They don't talk about why. Yeah. They don't make a reason. Your character in Owlboy is referred to as a mute, as a dumb mute, and you have your friend who talks for you.
Oh.
And it plays into that game stereotype that we take for granted. Link. I don't know, Samus.
Listen,
I don't know, so many.
Ocarina of Time, Link fell out of that tree one too many times because he couldn't say goddamn thing. Okay,
that's one of my favorite clips on the internet is him trying to buy a heart, and the guy's like, I don't know what you're saying. You're just yelling and pointing. I don't.
Well, that's the thing that gets me is that people understand him. I'm like, what? What do you? He just yelled at you. I'm sorry, but
what are those?
Go ahead.
You probably were going right back to this, but I was about to ask you, what are those? You say Persona hooked you in this way, but what are those games that you knew the moment you were like, wow, I'm hooked.
God, what have it recently? It actually goes back to this. I talked about last week that Hacknet did that for me. Because like I said, it was that hacking puzzle game we talked about. And it just starts off with this text thing. I'm not sure if you're reading this, but if you're reading this, it means I'm already dead. And I'm like, okay, wait, this is a puzzle hacking game. What's happening? And then you start getting further and further. And by the time you get there, you're just like, oh, this is awesome. And then I can't spoil the narrative because it ruins the whole game, but I'll leave that. But, Hacknet did that for me, but I'm trying to think of old school. I think, what's surprising? I enjoyed Final Fantasy VII. I didn't feel that in Final Fantasy VII. I never felt it. I just felt like...
Even with the big event that no one knows about that happens with Aerith?
Look. I'm just gonna say something, okay? And people are gonna hate me. I don't care that she died, because honestly... I never...
Because you didn't junction holy to her. That's why I care.
Listen, I'm sorry that you cared because she was semi-useful, not because they built her character well or anything. Listen, I love Final Fantasy VII. I do. I think its system is great. We can go on for days about it, but story in Final Fantasy VII makes no goddamn sense. Okay? It's just none. And, But... I'm trying to think of other ones. Because I play so much strategy, it really doesn't apply to that. I think Baldur's Gate does that to you. Definitely. Well, Baldur's Gate, we talked about it last week. Baldur's Gate 2 does that to you immediately. Why am I in this prison? Why is this guy experimenting on me? What the fuck is going on? And then
the hook is so strong.
Yeah, but I think that goes over the whole argument in general, because I like to think is for you, and if you could say, I wouldn't say concise and quick because this is a hard question, but for you, because I don't think it's just hooks or what the fuck moments. I think it's for you in a concise way you can. What makes a good story for you? When you sit down and you go, and you don't even have to finish, but say you finish a game, it's I enjoyed that story. We're not talking about the gameplay as a whole, but we're talking about, is that the thing that makes a good narrative for you or a good game for you, or is there other things as well?
So I sort of operate on two very distinct mindsets. So like sometimes I play a game for its mechanics.
Okay.
Usually that's when a game is more player-to-player interaction.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, like, I don't fucking give a shit why Mario's fighting Link. I just want to play Smash Brothers. But there are other games where I'm totally the other way around. Those are games, like a game I'm just started recently. I Am Setsuna. I was like, this looks interesting.
I heard
I'm gonna
about
pick this
that.
up.
Oh, it looks good.
Yeah, it's a very traditional RPG. It's for the Switch. I had some stuff, so I decided to, took my little baby toe in there. So like I play those games very for narrative focus, and a lot of times those are like my very single player games or more narrative. Sometimes they're not, in your Dark Souls and your Metal Gears. They're sort of a little bit of both, which are sort of my favorites. Mm-hmm. But I think what really makes a solid story for me is something that follows its own rules. And so what I mean by that is that if you establish something, like whether it's in your universe or with a character, that's a big one that games do a lot. They go back on a character to make gameplay work. Mm. You know what I mean? Like, let's talk about Watch Dogs again. Their character was, he had his daughter got shot, and yet here he is going around shooting everybody with an AK. You don't connect with that. You're like, there's some dissonance here. Mm. Because the gameplay dictates I gotta kill people, but should I really be killing people? And the best games meld those.
The best games justify it, at least.
Right. They can, and some games go completely off the rails. The Grand Theft Auto justifies it, and it's like, these people are insane. Like, if you relate to them, you're kind of fucked up. They're criminals. You know what I mean? So they get away with that in a lot of senses, and sometimes they go too far, sometimes they don't, but that's part of the fun. A game that I've mentioned before and I will consistently mention in this regard is The Last of Us. I think it's a masterclass in how you frame a game and tell a narrative. And the reason why is it's so I think what does it for games is it's very hard to tell a story with a lot of different characters and make them all interesting. Mm-hmm. The games that do that go down in history, like all their names, exactly what's going on. The classic RPGs where people cosplay as those characters religiously. But, what's sort of more attainable, I think, for a lot more games is like really condensed storytelling. Joel, Ellie, setting, outside characters. It's not very complicated, and they establish the characters. They make them make difficult choices. They make them make interesting choices that you care about. So to summarize all of that is a game that establishes a universe, establishes a character, and sticks to it, and makes them make believable choices due to their circumstances or established character traits. Okay. And so I think maybe the point that we were discussing is the time when the game establishes itself.
Right.
I mean, maybe that's the click moment. It's like, oh, I get this universe now. Mm-hmm. Or like, I have a into this universe now. Maybe that's that moment we were talking about, that hook moment. It's like taking you into its premise.
Yeah, it's taking you into the premise. It's the elevator pitch. It's the elevator pitch. It's almost the elevator pitch for, this is the world, go. And it's like, cool. And some games take longer for their elevator pitches, and because there's no time limit on them. I mean, for me, what always gets me every time is the same things you're saying. It's, you need a good, well-built universe. And I'm not talking uber detail. It's just like, it needs to be solid and well-built and not full of...
It doesn't need to be Westeros.
Yes, exactly. Which is ridiculous. But then you have, solid character and that plays by his own rules, as well as the people around him need to have a purpose, not just to be there. Like his supporting cast, I find to be one of the most important things in any RPG or any narrative-driven game, unless the character is alone. Then you have a different narrative. But if you're going to include supporting cast, like in an RPG setting, they are extremely important. But for me, I'm always on the opposite end. I never focus on the hero that much, even though I enjoy them. I'm so utterly interested, and this may show in my personality, but I'm so interested in villains and how they create the antagonist, or if there's not one villain, how they create the antagonistic side of the story. And I think that's more of an art form than creating a hero, because let's put it this way, like Persona, you can be a dude. You can just be a dude doing your stuff, right? But that's a great description, by the way.
I know that was so detailed. I was really
dude doing your stuff, bro. But you can be a guy just investigating this mystery when, in fact, kind of the antagonistic side is the mystery and is the guy that's committing the crime or everything like that. And I hate when I see a villain that's just like, 'cause I'm bad guy, or I want to destroy the world, and I'm like, oh, go fuck off. True. Go fuck off. Like, no.
What is the villain's motivation? I think their best villains have a clear-cut motivation.
And it doesn't need to be complicated either. Like, no, dude, I'm sorry, just comic book reference. Joker, he doesn't have one. I mean, he does. His literal justification is because he honestly believes Batman's lonely and he wants to keep him entertained. And that's it. That is literally it. He's an Anna.
Or something like more game-related. One of the best antagonists ever in games is GLaDOS.
Oh, yeah.
I think she's brilliant because her motivation is testing. And unless the testing gets more complicated, she doesn't get pleasure. And so she needs to make it more complicated until she kills you. And it's just so, that is, I mean, they spell it out for you and it still surprises you when she does things, or her speech, or what her character would say as an AI or whatever.
Right.
But, it's the perfect, example of just, if you have a simple, justified villain, that can be some of the most compelling stories.
Absolutely. And it doesn't even have to be the main villain either. It could be just, you're supporting our mini bosses or things that have these intricate web weaving stories. Because in, like, say, Persona, you have multiple bosses and they all have their justifications for why they're being bad or all these things. And quite literally, it's like, that's relatable. I get that. The best villain in some way has a relatable reason, not like meaning that you have to be like, I would totally do that. It's more just like, I get that. Okay, I see, like, even if there's some instability mentally going on, it's like, I see why that's happening.
Right. I don't agree, but I can have a concept of why this is occurring, not just like, dude, I'm the guy in the red shirt, so I'm going to punch you harder in Double Dragon. Bad dude stole the president's girlfriend. Are you going to go save her? Oh, that's bad.
With that bit crush. Oh, no. Like that bit crushed.
Oh, no.
Yeah, like.
Oh, yeah.
And that lady scream, like, that's completely like an 8-bit sound. Like that type of thing.
Yeah.
But I think that is a huge part of what makes the narrative, because so many people only focus on the heroes of the story, and so many people only focus on, like, their actions, and then you are left with this kind of thing. I'm like, well, you had to build up this hero because the whole point of a story is that a villain is already up to what the hero becomes. So you go from level 1 to 99, the villain starts out at 99 because you can't do a goddamn thing about him. So what the whole point of the hero's journey is to reach that point where he can hit the villain. And if you get to the villain where he doesn't seem intimidating, he doesn't seem like something's up, or he doesn't seem like he's a real thing, you're like, well, that doesn't seem like I should have worked that hard for it at all.
Like, what was the point of that?
Exactly.
That's a good point. Sometimes games can undermine their great narrative with, like, imagine if you got to the big Dark Souls end boss and it was a pushover. I mean, Demon Souls sort of does that, but to really great effect is there's this really hard boss, and then you're like, oh, I'm ready for the big bad. And it's like, it turns out that he was just grandstanding, and you just sort of like kill this slug thing, and that's it. And the other thing was the real boss. But in games like Mario, when Bowser isn't hard, you're like,
you're just kind of like, why? Why am I here?
Right.
Like, to your
so
point,
when Bowser is hard, I feel like it justifies all of Mario. And I was just thinking about your point. You know what's funny? And I never thought about this until you were talking about villains. A game that creates a brilliant villain and brilliant side characters, but in my opinion lacks so heavily in their main character, is Final Fantasy X. Think about that game. You have Aaron, one of the best side characters in the whole thing. Kamari, unbelievable. You have Riku, who's super entertaining.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Fucking
except for Waka. Except for Waka.
Waka, dude. Waka is my homie. I just want to hang out with Waka like all the time.
I want to hang out with him. I still don't get though why he just kicks a ball at people to kill monsters while everyone else uses weapons.
The ball can be imbued with elemental energy, so you can do a thunderball. All right, so just like back up. Also, Sinject, great villain, and Yuna is like the best part of that narrative, and then you have Titus. Like
sad.
That game. All you needed to do with that game is just give Titus like the slightest bit of not being
a whiny boy.
The game is still a classic. I mean, you can't take it away. But you know what's funny? Squall, who is my favorite protagonist, even looking back, I love him so much, is because he redeems himself. He knows he's whiny, and he hates himself because he's whiny, and he redeems himself. And like that's it. Like all you need to do is that, like that little turn, and there's no turn from Titus.
Yes,
he's just sort of in this bad situation. He's like, well, fuck it. I get the girl anyway because I got blonde hair and a crazy fucking suit and a sword. This is how this works. /// limit. Dit. I'm glad that made sense to everyone in the audience for my expert analysis of the lacking of the main character in Final Fantasy X.
And with that analysis, we're going to take a really short break and we're going to come right back at you. Probably with a little more Persona 5 talk, but a little bit of a different story, I think. So
maybe a little spin on our Persona 5 conversation. Who knows?
Exactly.
We don't know.
We don't know.
We're planning.
We really don't plan much at all.
No.
We don't.
But we may plan our breaks, so we'll see you guys soon after a little bit of a break. Take care.
Welcome to Name Not Found break portion. This is Chris, as always, where he says stupid things and plugs stuff in random voices because he does stupid voices for a living, so that's all he wants to do. Chris will stop stupid voice now. I promise I will. I want to thank you so much for listening. It really does mean a lot to us. We do get the tweets and the messages that everyone's been sending us. And we are making some changes, and we really want to engage you guys more. So if you guys have stuff you want us to maybe talk about, or you want things to be more like on the podcast, if you want us to change something, do something, we'd love to have a discussion with you guys. Even if you just want to talk about what you think about the topics that we're talking about, we would love to hear from you. And you can reach us at on Twitter. I'm at DefUnstable on Twitter. Colin is Hey I'm Bad with 2 D's. You can always comment below, like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz and nonsense. But above all, we really would love to continue to do this and have a lot of fun and have an audience that's engaged. I mean, it's not a huge importance to us that, it becomes giant and big. That's not really what we care about. We want a community of people that love games like we do, because we just used to sit around since we were 6 just talking about, isn't this the coolest game thing ever? Yeah, stuff like that, because that was totally my voice when I was a kid. Probably, I don't remember. But I'm taking up too much of your time, so all I say is be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share the show to people around you. It would mean a lot to us if you shared it to people you think would like the show. And above that, tweet at us, leave us comments, and I hope you guys are enjoying the show so far. So I'll stop talking and let's get back to it.
Hello and welcome back to Name Not Found. Today's topic, how to talk about games. Colin, how do we talk about games? I don't know how.
Well, specifically, we don't talk about them. So
we just give vague generalizations and then just be like, we're smart. That is this podcast. That is all it is.
Well, I was going to lead into our actual story, but now you've tangented me, as you are wont to do. You say one thing, Colin says, here, let me tell you my life story in excruciating detail that you didn't want to hear about. So when I like to generalize, I love to say, well, maybe it's this strong point, but I'm not entirely sure. Super strong point, but we can't really be, like I call it digging a hole and then climbing out immediately really fast and apologizing. Like that is my.
I'm sorry.
Discussion. That's what I do. You know it, and that's why you're laughing. The
best description
really
I've ever heard
in,
of you. Just from a cousin to cousin thing, basically brothers thing. That is the best description you've ever said of yourself. So good. Go ahead.
I mean, to be fair, the shovel is really good. You stick it into the wall, and you could just kick off it. To get up it really
absolutely.
Quick.
And to be fair, to be in over my generalizations are more like giant bombs that just drop down and be like, I'm gonna leave a crater here, and y'all fuckers can deal with it. So anyway, speaking of giant bombs, there was a story that came out, right?
Did we do 2 competent segues across 2 weeks? We can't make this be a thing. We don't know what we're talking about.
Because then the infinity symbol begins, and then the whole world starts to break. And this podcast is going to go off the rails starting now.
I'm not going to make it through this podcast without it going off the rails. I'm just letting you know. I'm just letting everybody in the ether know.
I think we're sort of wobbling on them tracks right now. It's wobbly. Real wobbly.
Warbling?
Warbling.
Wobble. I'm going to turn this car around. God damn it, Zapdos. We're going to turn around.
One day I will tell that story on this podcast. One day.
But not today. Today we talked about Atlas.
Yes. So speaking of Persona 5, as we talked about in the beginning, there was a story from Giant Bomb, and Colin, would you be kind enough to read to our listeners? Tell them a story.
So to be fair, I heard about this on Giant Bomb. I believe the original source was Forbes. They have a really nice gaming section, but the news came from Atlas, a blog post. So there's a post from Atlas USA basically talking about we're so excited Persona 5 finally came out, because as a lot of people may not know, Persona 5, and this is very pertinent to the conversation we're about to have, it came out well before this in Japan.
Yes.
So they took a lot of time to make sure that the localization was correct. So here is the statement. Okay, let's talk Persona 5 streaming and videos. I'm quoting now. Simply put, we don't want the experience to be spoiled for people who haven't played our game. Our fans have waited years for the game to come out, and we really want to make sure they can experience it fully as a totally new adventure. Please read our video streaming guidelines below. This gets pretty damn specific. Please do not post any specific plot points or story spoilers, and only talk about the game in broad strokes. Good example. The game deals with dark themes right off the bat, with a lecherous teacher and other corrupted individuals. Bad example. Players immediately run into trouble with a pervy teacher, spoiler, whose actions go so far as to cause spoiler. You're more than welcome to talk about show's confidants, the new combat, the Velvet Room, the dungeons, etc. Just please keep in mind that a singular story playthrough, the viewers are highly wary of spoilers. In-game content limit. Please limit video content through the in-game date of July 7th. And it goes on to say very specific criteria for specific video content. I'm sure they're referring to more YouTube, Let's Play type stuff, and in terms of streaming content. So one of the really interesting points, and I'll leave it off with this before I get your thoughts. If you decide to stream past 7.7, parentheses, caps, bolded, I highly recommend not doing this. You have been warned, end parentheses. You are at the risk of being issued a content ID claim or worse, a channel strike or account suspension. So this is obviously a really, really strong statement from the folks at Atlas. I wanted to get your thoughts.
So let me go in my Giant Bomb broad stroke for a second. So
you might want to rebrand that as not Giant Bomb, because there's a lot of people doing really great journalism.
No, they are actual. I'm sorry. That is not a knock. I actually really enjoy Giant Bomb as a site. I think they're one of the few game sites.
What do we call that cluster bomb approach? Because you sort of do a widespread
carpet bomb approach.
Carpet bomb. Better. Because we like to lay down on carpets.
Yes. To be fair, and just to make this statement ahead of time, Giant Bomb is one of the few games publishing sites I actually trust with information that I get, and that is not overhyped or crazy or clickbaity or nonsense. But as far as this statement goes, I can see two arguments. I can see, in general, I hate when companies do this. I think it disservices a great marketing opportunity, and the idea that once you release a game, it's really no longer yours, in my opinion, unless it directly impacts you, which means you're trying to hide something from us. If you're afraid of that, which means, oh, well, you can't, like, most of the time when you see people getting content strikes and stuff like that, it's from people who made real bad games, okay? That's, like, the biggest example, but in this case, there's part of me that does see where Altus is coming from, because they're a straight narrative story game, right? And it does have some replayability, but that's for diehards. This, by spoiling the story, you do directly hurt the sales of the game. Like, this isn't like, well, I'll go see that movie anyways, because, look, the movie ticket's only $12, so you could spoil it for me, whatever. What theater am I going that it's $12? It's $20 now, isn't it?
It's like 15 to 20, yes, depending on IMAX.
Whatever. But the key point is, like, for a $60 game, if the story's already spoiled, why am I gonna buy it? But I mean, that's the only argument I see them standing on. I really hate this, and this comes back to companies. I've noticed a trend, because you also mentioned that it had been out for, what did it say, like 2 or 3 years in Japan or something like that? It had been out for at least a year, I think, right? In Japan.
Persona
it's been out for in Japan, right?
6 months.
6 months.
Not quite a year. Yeah, only about a half a year. Not too long.
Coming to the point, like, Japanese developers, I've noticed there's always some disconnect between how YouTube, and I would say YouTube is way more, especially the Let's Plays, it's way more United States, Britain, it's Britain and Europe and that kind of area, but they don't seem to get that, because you see Nintendo is like the worst at this. Like, with that whole thing is like,
they are the fucking worst with rights.
Oh yeah, and then they said, oh yeah, you can Let's Play it, but you have to put it under our thing, and we're gonna take 80% of your revenue. And I'm like, that's dumb. That was literally their solution to the first problem when they got complaints.
Total side note, I wonder what the deal they gave Grumps, since they're like one of the biggest Let's Players on the planet, because they're playing a ton of Nintendo shit. They're playing Breath of the Wild now.
There could, in my opinion, there could be two things happening. They could go with individual advertisements of their own, like they could be advertising in different videos, you know, like they do Crunchyroll ads, they do other ads and stuff, so they're like, I don't give a fuck. Or they could just not monetize the video and then have their own stuff that they're advertising on the side.
So in the actual content of the video, say we're advertising X and not run YouTube monetization, which would get Nintendo. Interesting. I never even thought of that. It's a really interesting way, because their brand is stronger than necessarily the YouTube monetization, which is a rare occurrence for some of the most popular content
But also
creators.
the other part is I don't necessarily worry about big channels, because big channels have a lot more pull. You know, someone like the Grumps, you start demonetizing their stuff, and yeah, they don't have a ton of power, but I mean, they can cause way more of a scene for you and ruin your fucking game. And I'm not talking, Game Grumps wouldn't, the Game Grumps wouldn't specifically, but I'm talking more just take somebody on their level or above and fuck with them, and they'll Twitter post. I mean, Total Biscuit's a huge example of this. If somebody goes after it, Jimquisition is another one. But the key point I would make is that, like, how Nintendo does it is, I worry about the smaller streamers, the smaller YouTube, the up and comers that are trying to do this stuff.
The speedrunners, those are the people I always think about. They're smaller, they do amazing work, they unbelievable content, and yet they get shafted like all the time by Nintendo specifically, and they love their games. Like, in Super Metroid for years and years and years and years and years and years and years. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I mean, I went through what baffles me, right? So they talk about, well, it's our game and you're making money off of it. And I'm like, well, actually, you're getting free advertisement, first of all. Second of all, you pay ad companies. What I used to work doing video editing for ad agency when I first graduated. And you'd get contracts for $1 million from some of these companies, and to do their big game releases and to do, I would do motion graphics and stuff. And, you would get all of that. And like, what drives me is like, okay, so that guy over there, let's say a Grumps on one video on their thing could be making, and I'm overestimating and I don't have time to look, let's say $10,000, right? He makes $10,000. Okay, well, he does a 30 video series at $300,000 of marketing that you don't pay a dime for, that all of a sudden, really, that you don't pay a dime for, that literally gets people. I've bought games based off of like seeing the Grumps play or seeing Yogscast play it. Seeing
Northern Lion play. I bought The Binding of Isaac. I would never have touched The Binding of Isaac if not for Biznap and Northern Lion, and I bought all the expansions, everything regarding it. That's not to say for a ton of other games as well.
Well, yeah, and I see. Like, I'm torn, though, like, because I have this huge thing, like, this was the subject of, like, one of my class's senior theses, so it's, like, a huge topic for me.
Please do tell. Senior thesis.
Communications theory all the way, and internet broadcasting. But
I'd pass on your resume for a bland major. I'm just saying, be glad you're in voice acting. I'd pass on your resume.
No.
Putting it out there.
I went in communications, which is the most broad fucking major you could ever have. It's all, and then I went to voice acting. But the key part of this is, I am torn because there is a legitimate argument to be said that by spoiling a narrative-based game, you are decreasing the sales, which can be shown as detrimental. I think it's very debatable. I think as a whole, I hate it. I think there are specific cases that will prove, like exceptions that prove rules. But in my mind, I think Altus is wrong in general. I think that stating, like, threatening copyright strikes, threatening, they're not going to be able to shut down accounts, okay? That's not possible, first of all. They can't shut down an account. They can remove videos or they can send copyright strikes against somebody. That's what they can do. That is their power. That's an overstep. Second, which also shows that if that's a statement from the Japanese side of the company, that shows a way misunderstanding or just blatantly untrue threat
of what their influence is on the platforms that they're attacking. Because they're not just attacking the streamer; they're attacking the platform. That's a really big distinction.
Yeah, and I also think that the idea is even to counterpoint my argument, and I'll finish up so you can actually say two words. But
it's fine. I'm just drinking.
Just keep drinking the wine, buddy. It will get you more.
Oh, yeah.
The tail end of this whole thing is, as much as I think that it could hurt a story-based game like this, at the end of the day, I think that nobody would have cared if they never said anything. Like, nobody, I think at the end of the day, if the company just shuts up and lets this happen, it helps them. They're just imagining that it's going to ruin them for no reason at all. And I absolutely despise that, because I'm like, they're just drawing attention to shit that people are now furious about, and now they won't buy their game out of fucking principle. Like, you're being fucking stupid.
Well,
so, go ahead. I'm sorry, I've gone on long enough.
No. So, I think it might actually be a little different. So just taking a look at it from the business perspective, and we'll get into like what it means for content. So from the business perspective, like, think about games that you were interested in, games that you were like, man, I'm really curious. Like, what is this game? Because the people who played Persona 4, let's be honest, if you played Persona 4, Persona 4 Golden, you already bought this game.
Yeah.
You're buying this game. You're dialed in. You're ready to go. The Sarahs of the world. They're buying this fucking game. They're not trying to talk to them. They're not trying to talk to the people as well who see anime game. Fuck it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, people who are just going to write this game off. You're looking for new
anime lovers, which actually, to be fair, has dramatically increased over the years since Persona 4 was released.
Right. they're looking for this really large burgeoning market of people who are what I like to call internet butterflies, or like internet, like, sort of voyeurs. They absorb the basic gist of everything, but don't delve deep on anything. So deep would be committing, and we suck at committing in this and the next generation. Yay! We can absorb like the basic idea, and we go, great, I got it. You know, I say, I got it. I don't need
to delve any deeper. I don't need all the facts of the situation.
So maybe what this is less of we're going to try to hide or like draw attention to bad stuff, but maybe trying to bring in those people, that small subset of people who are like, you know, I wanted to absorb it, but I can't. That's weird. I better buy this thing, you know, and that's going to be like, you know, 25% of those people, 75% will be upset. But they'll also tell their friends, I'm so upset with this company Atlas about this game Persona 5. Persona 5? What's Persona 5? So, you know, people are talking about it. We're talking about it. So there's going to be a lot of other people who are too. So I think, I'm not saying it's some, you know, 4-dimensional chess marketing scheme. I'm saying it's that's the market they're targeting. Sure. In terms of the content, we're eventually going to have a discussion legally about fair use in Twitch. It's been a long time coming for YouTube and Twitch. Like, what the fuck is fair use when it comes to video games? Because let's look at this example. Let's say Persona 5 was a film. Let's say it was releasing theatrically. It was a Japanese release, and they released it with subtitles in the States. If somebody bought it, so they own it, they legally own a copy of the DVD of Persona 5 the movie, but they put it up on a website to say, hey, everybody watch this game. Now, I know, you know, as we both know, that a game is not just that. Like, that is a, you know, no pun intended, they sell these on Steam, so they are technically, you know, by Steam's account, games, but like visual novels, there's like no choice. You just sort of like click through and you experience the game. The best ones give you choice and give you agency. My definition of a game is an experience with agency, an experience with choice. Like the most basic example, you know, you choose one thing, even if it's just one thing, even if it's left or right, and it changes your experience. That's like, well, now they're starting to be called experiences, and then I think we sort of have to delve deeper into what a game is, but we'll leave that for another day. The point being is that why is in the Japanese developers and Atlas's mind, that is no different than somebody taking a Studio Ghibli film and putting it on their computer for everybody to see. So they're treating it in not the same way, because they're saying you can show X, but just like a company could show a trailer for Avengers or, you know, whatever. So it becomes where is the dividing line? What makes this different? And do there need to be different rules, or do they need to be the same rules? And I'm interested to see where you fall on this. So let's start with question 1. Why is this different from like a feature film? Okay. Why is Persona 5 different from a feature film? It's a narrative-based game. It's not really about like super crazy hand-eye coordination, like mechanics. You know, that's not the selling point. Number 2, do there need to be different rules? Or should it be more open for movies? I'm not saying that we keep the same draconian movie laws, because the movie business is very powerful and much older and more established. You know, maybe that needs to be, you know, less draconian. We see it in Netflix. We see it in Hulu. We see it in HBO Go. You know, we see like more open consumption. So, you know, what are your thoughts on this?
Okay, well, first, the first thing, what makes this different, if I'm correct, like what makes this different than a movie? I think different than a movie, obviously, is the overall, legally, they're actually way more similar than you think. Legally, as far as from what I understand. Okay, so first of all, there is currently a law that's often based on fair use, especially on YouTube. It's actually been referenced in a few lawsuits that are happened and are currently happening. Jimquisition, a channel by Jim Sterling, was sued by it's a company that made a terrible game that he called a piece of crap. and he was sued for that. That is 100% illegal for them to sue, even though they argued the cost of defamation, which is a very obvious. You can sue for that, but they issued a copyright strike against him first, which you can't do against somebody who's committing a review. That's fair use. That's journalism.
Right. He's not, there may be monetization, but he is taking your product at face value and expressing his personal opinion, First Amendment in some countries,
yes.
Their own
right.
benefit.
And then you have, but as far as legality of commentary goes, I mean, there's an argument either way. On one hand, they're profiting off of somebody else's work, which is a legal gray area. A legal gray area being that they're also providing a commentary track, which you can legally do. I mean, it's also considered parody, not in the same way.
Right.
But
that's the big thing is parody isn't a big exception. Parody satire.
So that's
is
often
protected.
referenced in that sense, because if that's allowed, because you don't need the permission of artist to parody a song. Weird Al has been doing it for years. He only asks out of courtesy. He doesn't.
Yeah, he asks because he's a fucking gem and a treasure, but he doesn't need to.
As long as you can prove that you provided a significant change to the song or itself, and that's the point. Does the commentary? And actually, this is a decent question because do you think that the YouTube commentary provides a significant enough to change?
Significant change to the content.
I mean, also it varies. Let's just go with the basic example, right? Like not fucking just lowest of the low, where the guy's like, "Hey guys, we're gonna play some of this game over here," or it's the guy with the we're gonna play this game, and that's exactly what.
You flashed me back to, I was trying to watch one of the 9 Persons, 9 Hours, 9 Door games, which was the most recent one, Zero Time Dilemma. I was trying to watch a playthrough of it because, back to this discussion, I didn't want to buy it on Steam. I wanted to kind of see like what it was first, if I bought it. And there was a guy who was literally like I saw a Fan Friday from Jesse Cox, and it was so engaging. And he was like, "Okay, I'm going to stop it," and then he didn't come back to it because he's a big YouTuber. He's got a lot of shit to do. So I was like, "Fuck, I got to search around, find someone who did Zero Time Dilemma." And the first guy, and I tried to sit through 20 minutes, but it was literally this. "Hey guys, I did, you guys got on the channel or whatever, and we're playing Zero Time Dilemma." All right. And this is a dark, someone dies by a coin flip in the first 3 minutes of this game, and that voice is accompanying all of that. So that really took away from the experience. Okay, so in terms of what does that necessarily change? I think it depends on the use of the source material more so than the voiceover. So let me explain. Let's say I were to just show, and you see this a lot, and it gets really tricky. Let's say there was a new theatrical trailer for Avengers, Thanos, the Infinity Gauntlet. They were like, "Yep, here it is, Infinity Gauntlet. It's happening. Get hype." And someone posted a YouTube video uncut of the Marvel trailer, going through the whole thing and credits of just them talking over it, with no cuts, no here, let me talk about this part of the trailer, and then slowing it down or changing the video in some way. I would feel as though that is an improper use of Marvel's intellectual property. They weren't doing anything with it. They were just not necessarily referring directly to trailer. I feel like it'd be lazy and hackney and open to scrutiny. Probably didn't get that many views, so it wouldn't be worth their time.
Now, just to clarify really fast, just so I know what you're talking about, in this scenario with the trailer, a guy not talking about the trailer at all, just talking. Yes. Okay. Right. Not directly commenting on the trailer itself or anything, or reacting to it or anything like that. Right.
So reaction is a different thing because it's live and you can sort of edit that. I'm talking about somebody may be talking about the trailer, but they didn't edit the footage. It's a runtime of 2 minutes and it's them just talking sometimes you see it all the time where like people will just run the same little video clip and just repeat it over and over and have them sort of talk about it, but not like refer to any specific point or break it down. Like you see people who do this really well is the YouTube channel Mother's Basement. He does a lot of anime. It's solely anime specific stuff, and it's really informative. He did some game stuff, but like he's like and this point in the trailer, and then like you see like a slowdown of like what he's talking about in like the animation or the song or like you know what he's going over. And I feel like hell yeah, that is his content. He created that content. It's not piggybacking over somebody else's content. And I know that is an impossibly hard delineation to make, but it's the delineation I make.
So would you
personally.
say that what you're saying, more or less, just to the sum, is that it should be more or less. I know this is hard for them to do, but their strike should be based more about the effort that's put into the product, because that makes. I know it's impossible to legalize because you can't just specifically, but you have to prove sufficient effort went in to differentiate it from the original content, you know?
And this is the problem we get into. We are in the gray area of intent, purpose, and effect. We don't know what effect a tweet will have, and it's like 140 characters and whatever. We don't know what effect like a video could have. Like small videos have undone really large organizations, you know? Some true, some false. So that is my personal opinion. If I want to talk about like actual legal standing, I don't agree with Atlas's point, and I'm going to just say from a baseline that I think on the whole, while there are some people who will say, oh, I absorbed the game, I'm not going to buy it, there are more. Just from my experience watching streams, this is not based on any empirical, like statistical sourced evidence, that more people who hear about their favorite streamer playing a game will buy that game than that will be pushed away. That's my opinion.
No, I can see that opinion. No, that's absolutely a valid one. I mean, like that's yeah.
Well, it's an opinion not based on fact, so I wouldn't call it a valid opinion. It is my my best guess. I would say it is an informed guess on my my presence in the community and knowing people who watch streams. Like,
I think there's basis for it in some areas where it can hurt, but I don't know, man. Like this is like such a complicated legal topic, and trust me, like I've delved into this too many times to the point where my eyes fucking bleed. Because this is also something that once again, we don't know like what the fuck we're doing, because honestly,
we are not an authority on this subject, nor are we experts, nor do we really know the first thing about it, but we'll talk about it.
It's fun. I think, as a whole, I don't think it will hurt the sales of Persona if the game was on there. I think that their argument legally can make sense. I don't think that it will hurt them, but I think it hurts them more to release that statement. Personally.
Yeah, I would say that I agree with you maybe in the long run, but I also think that there's a lot of talk of people buying games by principle, and then COD does the next ridiculous pre-order.
And then people get angry about map packs again, and...
Right.
And they buy them. And they bought a fucking $120, what was it, $120 Battlefront season pass or something, or was it $80? I don't know. Right,
but the like $40 extra to play it like 4 days earlier, like they just Battlefield preying off FOMO and whatever.
Dude, I'm sorry. When you asked me to, just on the side, if you're asking me to pay extra money to play your game early, and if it's not like, 3 months, I'm like, well, I'd pay like $15 to play it that early if I loved it enough. But if you're talking 4 days, 4 days where I'm probably have to work too.
Some people really want to pwn those noobs.
Well, here's the funny thing: those games are multiplayer. You have to rely that there are a lot of people that want to play that, or you're going to be playing multiplayer by yourself. Like,
you will never be playing Battlefield by yourself. But the problem is that when you're buying it early, also, and I don't know how we got onto this. The only people who are going to be buying it are hardcore people who are better than you. But like coming back to what we were talking about with Persona, I think that this is going back to your point about the cultural divide. I think this is really just a cultural divide, as maybe in Japan, again, coming from no place of authority or knowledge, maybe they view games in more of the same vein as like movies and like visual content than we do in the States.
I definitely think they do. That's
like,
what it seems
States,
like, yeah.
Like movies, TV, totally different section. Games are Mario and Zelda, and like when you look at like the mainstream view of games, it's still relatively archaic in terms of like what they've become. Like you talk to somebody about a stream. I literally had to do this the other day at my job, is explain to them what a stream was. Like, not about a game, about a video content. So like but everybody knows what movie and TV is. So there's a big divide here.
I've met voice actors that don't know how streaming works. And by the way, they're working on video games. I'm just pointing that out.
That's so
well,
bad.
no, to be fair, the guy was like 70. So I don't really get on him, but
it's dangerous to go low.
It's dangerous. It's doing that. But yeah, I can understand that. Like, I'm sorry. Like, this topic gets me so frustrated sometimes because I get real angry.
It's hard. It's hard. There is no. You know why this is hard? There's no algorithmic answer. No. There's no like, if X, yes. If Y, no. So it's a matter of taste. It's a matter of personal opinion. In what content we think is derivative. They're just taking this from this. This is a hack. Or, oh, wow, this is really informative. And, like, thank you for, like, showing me, like, what this game has to offer in, like, a really compelling way. And the problem is that large companies can't use that surgical knife. They have to be broad about it.
And legally you can't use a surgical knife either, and that's the problem,
Right. It's sort of an issue with how we have to enforce, because you can't enforce on a case-by-case basis. There are too many case-by-case bases. Look at the number of retweets for an average Kim Kardashian tweet. Do you think somebody could moderate that forum? No, it's like back in the day, we had like a more limited amount of people posting on a forum, so you could have moderators. You can't do that with like the way the bulk of our information is.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, we are just about running out of time. So, and we
we'll end it on Kim Kardashian tweets. So definitely about games, right?
Hole digging and carpet bombing. And that's pretty much what was going on. So before we end, I've been Chris, and my game choice for the week that everyone must play because we talked about it is Persona 5.
Out for the PS4 here in the United States. I have been Colin, and this is Name Not Found. And as always, we don't know what the fuck we're talking about.